Kendrick Lamar is the first rapper to win a Pulitzer Prize for music, a seminal achievement for Kendrick, for hip-hop, and for the Pulitzer Board. Kendrick has been considered one of hip-hop's best writers for years, a man who can write complex rhymes and tell touching stories and really make you feel every word he's saying. He's the first rapper to win a Pulitzer for music, an achievement long overdue for hip-hop and for the Pulitzer Board. Kendrick is from Compton, California, a notoriously violent city. But in hip-hop, Compton is hallowed ground. It's the birthplace of giants like Dr. Dre and Eazy-E from NWA, as well as DJ Quick, MC8, and The Game. It's a gritty place, but also a place where a lot of people have grit. Serena Williams, Ava DuVernay, and Richard Sherman are all from Compton. Kendrick grew up around gang life, seeing dead bodies in the street and trying to survive the war on drugs. As he once wrote, he was, quote, just a good kid trying to keep it neutral, trying to keep it positive. He put out his first mixtape in 2004 at the age of 16 under the pseudonym K-Dot, but he made his name with his studio albums. First Section 80 in 2011, then Good Kid Mad City in 2012, then To Pimp a Butterfly in 2015, and last year, damn. He's won 12 Grammys and massive respect. Real hip-hop heads hold him up as one of the smartest people in the genre and a sophisticated musical mind. For many fans, giving Kendrick a Pulitzer is not confirmation of Kendrick's greatness because they already knew that. A century and a half ago, young Joseph Pulitzer found his way from Budapest to America and created a publishing empire. He died in 1911, and in his will, he founded the prizes that would create his legacy, awards for journalism, letters, drama, and education. The Pulitzer Prize for Music was added in 1943. The winners have all been extraordinary, but they've been limited to classical and jazz. So the message from the Pulitzer Board was clear. All the real intelligence and greatness in music is in classical and jazz, period. In 2008, the board gave a special citation to Bob Dylan, finally recognizing a genius songwriter from outside of classical and jazz, but just one. Did the board really mean to say there's not one contemporary musical genius? By crowning Kendrick, a hip-hop artist in the prime of his career, the Pulitzer Board has sent a message larger than just, that guy's brilliant. It's saying hip-hop is a complex art form that deserves respect from America's most august institutions. But what about the many people who already knew Kendrick was a genius songwriter? Who already knew that hip-hop contains evidence of the brilliance of its creators, of Black Americans? For them, the Pulitzer going to Kendrick says nothing about Kendrick that they didn't already know. But it does tell them something about the Pulitzer. Finally, this hallowed American institution has woken up to realize that there's genius in hip-hop.
I've been writing my whole life, so to get this type of recognition, it's beautiful.
Congratulations.
And with that, we've melded the legacies of a hardworking Hungarian immigrant and a once-in-a-generation musical talent from Compton. Damn.
Voorhees family, I am delighted to welcome to our Lyceum a book talk, a young man that I have known for a very long time. He is an American pop culture critic, an essayist, a literary editor, a fiction writer, music journalist, a film maker, and an author. of a wonderful book that we are excited about, that we will have in the library for you all to read. Promise that you will sing about me, the power and poetry of Kendrick Lamar. Welcome to the Voorhees Lyceum series, Mr. Miles Marshall Lewis. How you
Dr.
doing,
Mason, thanks for having me. It's great
Oh,
to be
man.
here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. You've been very busy. You're all over the place. Now, let me admit, I have not read the book yet. We're working on that.
Working on it.
So I'm sort of at a little disadvantage, but I'm excited, and it gives me something to look forward to. But, tell us a little bit about the book, and then we're going to kind of peel back the layers to see how did you get from your early start to where you are right now. Tell us a little bit about what the book is about.
Sure. Well, Promise That You Will Sing About Me. It's like a cultural biography of Kendrick Lamar, and it's sprinkled with a bit of autobiography of my own. I sort of tell different stories that are relevant to Kendrick's story throughout the book to give it some dynamism. I don't want it to read like a long Wikipedia entry. We can all sort of find out about Kendrick's life through other sources. But what makes it interesting literarily is that there are these other bits and pieces, stories that are relevant to Black culture, etc. So, that's the book. It's got a lot of illustrations and photographs and side commentary in the margins from the likes of Ta-Nehisi Coates and Alicia Garza, co-founder of the Black Lives Matter movement, cultural critic Greg Tate, and different people like that. It's like 14 different voices in the book besides mine.
Well, I've read some of the reviews. They've been glowing. The timing of the book, Kendrick Lamar's music and the impact and the influence continues to make music. So how did you get to this point? Let me see if I can find this picture. Tell us about this young man right here.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah. Well, I was 17 in that photo, and I was graduating from a high school in the Bronx, and my grades were not fantastic, and I went to see School Days. So this is Spike Lee, 1988, and it introduced me to the AUC, the Atlanta University Center down in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I was aware that Spike Lee had gone to Morehouse, and so I just sort of started my college application process to, let's say, I believe Howard, probably Morehouse, definitely Morris Brown College. And the ones that accept me was Morris Brown on probation. I was not a fantastic high school student. So I went down to Morris Brown, and I spent some time there, half my college career actually, and ended up transferring to Morehouse, which was my sort of original intention. Yeah. And got out in 93. And 93 was the founding of Vibe magazine, which was like sort of a Black Rolling Stone magazine. And I grew up on Rolling Stone. My dad was a big subscriber and reader of that magazine as a pop culture sort of Bible. And so Vibe was being published in New York, which was where I was from. I'm a native New Yorker from the Bronx. And so when I went back home, I interned. Despite being a college graduate already, I interned at Vibe and spent the summer there learning the ins and outs of the magazine stuff. And then I went to law school, actually. I went to Fordham University School of Law that September. But already my heart wasn't in it. Already I had decided I didn't want to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a writer. And if I could make that happen, then that was going to be my path. And slowly but surely, I did it. 6 years later, I was the music editor of Vibe magazine, where I had interned, and went on to write for Rolling Stone and for various other outlets, the New York Times, GQ, The Village Voice, which is defunct now, but was founded by Norman Mailer back in the 60s and was a big deal. That's my Nas cover. Yeah. And so, so I worked at Ebony eventually. Long story short, I had lived in Paris during my 30s from 2004 to 2011. Met my wife over there. She's a Black French woman. Our children were born there. We have 2 fabulous teenage boys. And I returned to the States in 2011 and started to work for Ebony, where I wrote a series of cover stories for them, including Prince and Kendrick Lamar and Michelle Obama.
That's amazing. So let's talk about college days or school days. I'm not amazed that you, like so many other hundreds, maybe thousands of students, were impacted and influenced by school days. And then subsequently, a different world. Jasmine Guy
Right.
loves to say that our show has sent so many students to HBCUs. And
true.
so what was that experience like for you, both at Morris Brown and of course at Morehouse? And talk about writing and journalism. Were you an English major? I mean, what was your major in college?
Right. No, I got you. I mean, being at Morehouse was amazing. I mentioned, well, you mentioned A Different World. I had the chance to study under her father,
Reverend Guy,
Jasmine.
Dr. Guy.
Jasmine Guy from A Different World. Her father taught a religion course at Morehouse that I took at a certain point. But it was just amazing. It was everything that I had seen in terms of A Different World. Did start the year that I started college, and School Days came out that same year, 1988. And so I was living what I was watching. You know, they filmed a lot of those exterior shots on the AUC campus, and I could point to the buildings and be like, wow, like that's where I take chemistry, you know. Morris Brown was wonderful. I feel like I spent more time there even after graduating, transferring to Morehouse. I spent more time at Morris Brown than I did at Morehouse. I was able to pledge the Iota chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha while I was at Morris Brown.
Which is where I met you.
Naturally, which is where I met you. And we may have crossed at your house, you know. Certainly we partied at your house at least one night.
Don't tell them.
Now, I'll never forget these wonderful photographs of just, it was like your house was an African American museum.
Yeah.
You know, for sure. But anyway, I had pledged there, and I was determined to stay with my brothers, of course. So despite being a Morehouse student, I was involved with the Black and Gold pageants and with the step shows and the other things that were going on with my chapter at Morris Brown. And I really enjoyed the people. You know, I have to say that growing up in the Bronx, I was not in Jack and Jill. You know, I was not in my parents were not into Boulay. You know what I mean? I didn't grow up like that. I had never seen Martha's Vineyard. So the experiences of a lot of the Morehouse kids who were the sons of doctors and lawyers, I can't say I didn't relate to them, but I can say that the student body at Morris Brown was a lot more down to earth. And after having spent the first half of my college education there, I made forged bonds with them, you know, that I maintain to this day, you know, definitely with my frat brothers, a lot of close relationships. In terms of writing, though, I think the student newspaper of Morris Brown was in flux at that time, and Morehouse had a very vibrant student newspaper, the Maroon Tiger, it's called. And so I wrote for them. I remember my first piece for them being when Miles Davis passed away in 1991, because I was named after him, of course, and I had the privilege of seeing him live twice before he died. My dad took me to Avery Fisher Hall to check him out with B.B. King, and I saw him on another occasion, and I never got to meet him, sadly enough, since my life ended up being a life where I met a lot of celebrities and interviewed them and stuff. He passed. But anyway, I wrote my obituary on him for the Maroon Tiger, and that led to other pieces reviews and interviews. And by the time I graduated Morehouse, I was the arts and entertainment editor. So, and then Vibe came out. And so I was like, well, wow, this could be a path. I just don't know how viable it is, you know, in terms of pursuing like the arts and an artistic career versus something more corporate like the law sphere. I was sort of torn and listening to the elders in my family, which were definitely pushing me away from the arts a little bit.
I mean, from law school to covering the arts for a magazine, that is kind of a stretch, you know. But look at what happened and how profound, you know, your writing uh, became. Before you move on, because we have students here, of course, who are watching, and I always encourage, and we always encourage them to take advantage of this moment. Okay, it's not just about going to classes, it's about going to classes, and it's about the work that you do outside of classes, the extracurriculum,
Certainly.
writing on the school newspaper, being a part of the year, but those kinds of things that really help to, in some shape, form, or fashion, shape you. I never knew about the your work on the Maroon Tiger. Maybe I did. I perhaps forgot about it, because I think, let's see, you graduated in
1993.
93, and let's see, I was at Morehouse at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, I was teaching in the history department at Morehouse.
Okay. See, I didn't even realize that, because I'd probably taken my history classes already.
Your freshman history class.
Right.
Yeah. So I primarily taught freshmen. But yeah, I remember that period, that era of time. Vibe magazine, when it came out, was huge. I still have all of my Vibe magazines.
Oh, beautiful.
I have a tremendous collection in storage, but the beautiful covers and the story.
Sure.
And you're probably all up in the midst of that, some of those early issues. And
oh yeah, I still have the first issue. I have the first 2 issues, I believe.
What was on the cover of the first issue?
The very first issue was a test issue, and so they put Tretch from the group Naughty by Nature.
Naughty by Nature, yeah.
But then the second issue, which truly launched the magazine, maybe 9 months later, was Snoop Dogg.
I have that one.
Right.
Yeah, I have that one. So I'm simply saying is that you began to shape, vicariously what will become your career in college. You didn't waste moments. You were writing, you were trying to figure it out, because college is also about trying to figure out what you want to do,
much so.
Yeah, what you want to become.
Sure.
So tell us about your Vibe time there and some of the people that you got a chance to meet.
Sure. Well, I would say, as a parenthetical, that my parents were actually very supportive. My family was actually supportive. It might have been my grandmother who's the strongest voice in terms of me, like, stick with law school, like, take the bar. But you have to understand that this is the early 90s, and that hip hop culture, it wasn't evident that it was going to be this worldwide force that would last to other people besides people in their 20s and teenagers. Like, we were the ones who saw the vision of that and the viability of it. And the elders were sort of like, well, I don't know if you should be devoting your life to covering hip hop culture. It could be a flash in the pan, or what are you going to do when it fades out? So there's that to say. But in terms of being at Vibe, that was a wonderful time. I mean, I worked with some great editors over there, including Joan Morgan, Kevin Powell, who was famous at that time already from being on the first cast of The Real World, which was the very first reality show ever. And Scott Polson Bryant was another great writer over there. I was sort of the intern for the writers when I began in 93, but then becoming the music editor 6 years later was a different story. I mean, by then it was clear that hip hop was the new rock and roll. It was the youth culture of choice worldwide. And for sure, I interviewed anyone really you can name, or met anyone you can name. It was cool to meet a young Beyonce, for example, a teenage Beyonce. It was, I encountered Puff Daddy, I encountered Prince eventually, and the likes of, I don't know, Nas, Big Daddy Kane, and KRS-One had a big versus battle last night, and I've interviewed both of them. Yeah. Like on and on. Angela Bassett, Denzel Washington.
Denzel,
it's like growing up in New York. I would say that I wasn't really as phased to meet celebrities as maybe a lot of my peers were. Right. And so I didn't have that sort of trepidation of like, what am I going to do? And being sort of nervous about it, because growing up in New York, so many of them live in New York that I would just sort of see them on trips downtown with my parents to Greenwich Village and different areas of Manhattan, like, oh, wow, there's Dougie Fresh, or there's, whoever. So that wasn't such a big deal for me. But I would say that the greatest interview of my career was Prince. Prince was a hero of mine. You know, Prince, it wasn't going to be bigger than Prince and Michael Jackson, you know, at a certain point. And I met him 8 months before he passed away. I was invited to Paisley Park Studios, which was by then where he was living. He had an apartment upstairs or a bedroom or whatever. And we spoke for over 3 hours, and I was able to sort of pour myself out in terms of all the questions I had for him since I was 16, you know. I'm a rudimentary pianist, you know, and as a teenager, I would come home from high school and sort of practice the piano, the upright that was like out of tune in my bedroom, and I taught myself Prince songs. You know, I had sheet music of Prince music, so I was to be able to go to Paisley Park Studios, his home, and sit in the studio and play Prince songs on Prince's piano. Like that was amazing for me, you know. Michelle Obama was another huge interview, obviously, during the year that she released Becoming, her memoir, which is amazing. That was, you know, an amazing experience. I have not met Barack, Mr. You know, President Obama.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience. You know, it was definitely for me. I encourage, for that matter, all students listening to follow their passion, you know, wherever that takes them. Do whatever it is that makes you the most excited, because then it's been said before a million times, but your work won't seem like work. It won't seem like a job. You know, I'm 50 years old at this point, and I have returned to school. I'm taking a filmmaking workshop at the New York Film Academy to become a director. And that's because of my love for film, my love for my passion for the movies. You know, that's something that I definitely intend to pursue in the next 2 decades. You know, I'd love to make as many movies as I possibly can that I write, you know, myself. So, you know, education never ends.
Never ends. Well, I tell you, everyone cannot say that they have a photograph with the great Gordon Parks. One of my heroes.
Oh yeah, me too.
And so, you know, I don't gawk, and I've taken a picture with a lot of celebrities like you as well.
Sure.
But there are some, you know, that just really ranks and sets apart just being in their space and in their presence, and particularly long after they're gone, the body of work still exists. You know, and that you've had the chance to meet Prince and spend time with Prince and some of these other ones as well. So, and I want to talk about your filmmaking, but I want to get to the book right now.
Sure, let's do it.
And tell us why you decided to do a book on the lyrics of Kendrick Lamar.
Right. Well, Kendrick, I think, is one of our most important griots right now. You know, I think that he's a very talented MC. That goes without saying. But when he won the Pulitzer Prize for music, that was the year that I signed the deal for my book to write about him, because I felt like, okay, this is a moment where we really need to look at this brother and cogently explain like what it is about him that makes him so important. You know, as I mentioned, I'm a little bit older, and so I'm not keeping up necessarily with Lil Baby and Da Baby and, you know, all these
and all of the babies.
Right. I'm not keeping up with all of the babies, I have to admit. But Kendrick definitely has my ear and has had my ear for a decade now. He reminds me of all the MCs that I used to love, you know, Biggie and Tupac and Big Daddy Kane and KRS-One and Jay-Z. And like, he's in that lineage very much so. Lyricism is very important to him, and he's one of the most talented right now to be doing it. I realize that Drake is a huge pop cultural force, and he can rhyme. I don't take his talent away from him, but he can't rhyme like Kendrick. You know, I'm aware that brother Michael Eric Dyson is currently writing a book about Drake, you know, and I'm sure there's a lot to say there. And he taught a class about Drake at some university that it escapes me now. But I had the opportunity to teach a course about Kendrick at NYU, at the Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music. Maybe 2 years ago while I was writing the book. Those students helped me a lot, their insights and stuff.
Sure.
So yeah, the book is just full of why he's such an important hip hop force and pop cultural force and even political force. You know, the song that he released, All Right, in 2015 on To Pimp a Butterfly was adopted by the Black Lives Matter movement. There were rallies going on they would chant the lyrics to his song, and so it sort of became like a modern day "We Shall Overcome," you know, which is an amazing thing for a rapper these days to have accomplished.
So you took his lyrics and you analyzed them, you broke them down. You know, you delved into them in terms of the commentary. About how many lyrics, songs are featured in your book?
Well, probably that's a hard question. I mentioned so many, you know. I mean, the large part of the book is biography of his life, you know, and so we do get into definitely so many of his songs. I would say roughly 30.
Okay.
30 to 40 probably. Yeah. You know, there's an index in the back, and you can find your favorite Kendrick song quickly and the flips of the page, but there's got to be probably 30 to 40 songs mentioned in there, you know.
Wow, that's amazing. So what are your favorite? What's your favorite Kendrick Lamar song and why?
Right. I like Love, to be honest. You know, Love from the Damn album, which is the album that won him the Pulitzer Prize.
Okay.
Just the mood of it, you know, grabs me. He's got, you know, more songs that are much more political and much more dense lyrically, but the mood of Love, which was one of his biggest singles, is really sort of my favorite. There's a song called Live Again, which is not actually his song, but he appears on it. It's the song by Schoolboy Q, which is one of his associates. Kendrick has a loosely based or loosely knit crew of rappers that he rhymes with from time to time called Black Hippie, and it includes J-Rock, Schoolboy Q, and Ab-Soul, and Kendrick. And so whenever you buy an album from one of those people, one of those MCs, Kendrick often appears. And Schoolboy Q has a song called Live Again, which has like these really hard drums that are probably sampled from Barry White. I'm sure they are, in fact. And Kendrick's verse on that is definitely like the shining moment of the song.
Wow. My favorite Kendrick Lamar song, which I can't really quote the lyrics on this venue here, but I love his DNA song.
Oh yeah, DNA is great.
I love the me. I got loyalty, got royalty inside my DNA. I got power, poison, pain, and joy inside my DNA. I got hustle, though ambition flow inside my DNA. I was born like this, since one like this, immaculate conception. I transform like this, perform like this. I don't contemplate, I meditate. Well, I can't say the rest of that. I got millions, I got riches. And as a family historian, as a genealogist, as one deeply involved in understanding my DNA and my family's DNA, I thought this song was just a new generation's understanding of the importance of understanding about who you are, whose you are, and the people that you come from. And I just thought the lyrics were just profound.
That's an excellent choice. You know, I mean, like Kendrick won the Pulitzer, and he was the first hip hop artist to do so, and in fact, probably the first pop artist. Period. The prize always goes to opera or classical music, and they gave it once to Wynton Marsalis in 1997, I believe, for Blood on the Fields. You know, which is an excellent album, sure, but they've passed over the likes of Duke Ellington for this award, and so they're opening up obviously a bit more now to have awarded it to Kendrick, but they awarded it for that album that has DNA on it, you know, and I'm sure that the board members heard that song among all the others and decided, you know, how can we deny this brother? How can we be considering these other hip hop influenced albums for the prize without listening to something directly from hip hop? And once they heard Kendrick, it was all over.
Oh yeah, amazing. And he's and to be a Pulitzer Prize winner on top of that. And so we're going to make copies of the book available to our students. Why should they read this book? What would you say to them listening, watching, as to why they should pick up this book and read it?
Sure. Well, for me, it's all about inspiration, to be honest. I mean, I think that just as college students and as people, period, we should determine what it is that is sort of our life path, like what is it that we're here for, really? And I determined for myself personally that it's about inspiration. Like I moved to Paris for personal reasons, but I would hope that it would inspire people to sort of travel and to get their passports in order and to realize that the world is bigger than the United States of America. And I went there influenced by James Baldwin and Richard Wright and Maya Angelou and the different people that I admired who went there. And so I would hope that reading Kendrick's book, that they would be inspired by Kendrick. Like I'm myself, I'm not the only inspiration. I can shine light on people that we should be inspired by. And I definitely feel that Kendrick is one of those people. Just he's from hard scrabble background in Compton and became a Pulitzer Prize winner. He stuck with his passion and created album after classic album in a hip hop genre that is not really about what he's about at the present moment. It's not full of super talented lyricists. It's not full of politically minded lyricists. And he followed his own path, and it's been paying off for him. And his music is fantastic, and he gets the critical accolades that he deserves. And I feel that above all, they should read his life story and keep in mind what their own life story might be, or how they want their own life stories to go once it's over. I believe I read a book called The Artist's Life by Julia Cameron, ex-wife of filmmaker Martin Scorsese. She wrote a book about just pursuing the arts and pursuing your passion and figuring out what it is. And I think one of her techniques was like, write your own obituary. Figure out in advance, like give yourself a long life, sure. But like figure out how you want your story to be told once it's all over.
Right.
And that's something that has worked for me, and I feel like looking at someone else's life, Kendrick's biography and the biography of so many others. You mentioned Gordon Parks, he definitely has a few memoirs, I believe. Certainly one of them I read, A Choice of Weapons, I believe is the one that I read. But he's got another one, Learning Tree, which he made into a movie. Imagine the most fantastic life for yourself that you can in advance, and then take the steps to make that happen.
Yeah, indeed. Now, when you write a book about someone like Kendrick Lamar, do you have to get permission to use their lyrics, their image? How does that work for those who are interested in writing about somebody?
Sure. I mean, there are so many biographies out there. The Beatles have 200 books written about them, probably. Permission is not necessary.
Okay.
The reproduction of lyrics does get dicey. There's only a certain amount of lyrics that you're allowed to use legally before you have to get copyright permission from the publishers of the work. And what else? But his permission is not necessary. I did interview him for the cover of Ebony magazine in 2015. And so I use a lot of that interview in the book. That's sort of my personal property, having interviewed him and for Ebony, but also the rights revert back to me once it's out there for a certain amount of time.
Right.
And so I use a lot of my interview tapes, a lot of the things that he told me that didn't make the interview because, an interview in a magazine can only be like 2,000 words. So my book is easily 250 pages. So I use a lot of that stuff, which was helpful to me in understanding who he is. But yeah, if you want to write somebody's biography, go for it. Put together a proposal, get your literary agent, because most publishers will not you won't get in the door without having an agent to represent you.
Sure.
And then and go for it.
Are you working on anything else now? Any new books? And talk a little bit about your film studies and film work.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, on Vimeo right now, if you were to search my name, you would find a few videos, one of which is a silent film short that I just finished editing over the weekend. It's called Heroes Welcome. And it's sort of one of the first assignments I have in film school to complete a silent short film. I'm working on a music montage now for next weekend that I believe is going to survey a bunch of different neighborhoods and locations in the Bronx where I grew up, set to some music that I have yet to choose. But I'm working on film, and I have an idea for a documentary about French hip hop and French hip hop culture that I raised a bunch of funds for at the beginning of the pandemic on Kickstarter, and that is still in an account for me to use probably next year. Now that we can fly internationally again, I'll go to Paris and interview the rappers that I need to speak to. But the main thing I'm working on right now, the Kendrick book was published by St. Martin's Press, and I have another book coming out through them either late next year or 2023. Another similar cultural biography about comedian Dave Chappelle.
Wow. Oh, wow. That should be good.
I'm really getting into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much that he's done that I have to survey, so much research. So I'm in the research phase of that right now.
Did you catch his recent Netflix piece?
I'm holding off on it.
You're holding off on it?
I'm holding off on it. There's been a lot said about it.
It took me 2 days to get through it. Okay.
Did it? Okay.
I think maybe after the first 30 or 40 minutes, I just needed to take a break.
Right.
Yeah, right. And then I came back the next day, a little bit more refreshed. But I got through it, and it's quite Chappelle.
Okay.
Yeah, what can we
I mean, there's so much to be said. Like it is a Chappelle biography, but I know in advance that I'm going to sort of approach it within the pantheon of like Black comedy period, right. Or comedy, sure, period, in terms of let's say Lenny Bruce and George Carlin and people like that who were truth sayers in their own right, but Richard Pryor, and Dick Gregory, and Moms Mabley, and people like that, like just sort of making it clear that there's a tradition in this country of laughing to keep from crying, and being able to say certain truths because you're kind of joking about it. And so you can get away with saying certain things that they wouldn't let you say directly, straightforwardly. Dave Chappelle is a master of that.
Yeah, he is. So your time in Paris, when you were there, did you consider yourself an expatriate, or you would just, what was going on in your mind during that time? Because so many of our wonderful icons, James Baldwin, Josephine Baker, Langston Hughes, and others spent a great deal of time, and moved to Paris. And also, were you thinking about permanently settling there during that time, and you decided to return back home?
Yeah, I mean, it was heavily on my mind. When I left, of course, I was sort of an idealistic, more naive human being. I was 33 at the time, but I felt that it was calling me a little bit. I had visited briefly already and felt that the city was just really beautiful and really inspirational in terms of my writing and just life. I felt like I was very aware that Paris was like sort of a life school for artists, like all the great icons that you just mentioned, and I wanted to do my take on that. I wanted to see what it would be like in the modern era to be there. The world is a lot smaller than it was for the likes of James Baldwin, who sort of had to get on a ship and go over there and spent days getting there. Like there's Skype now, there's ATM cards even, where like back in the day you would have had to go and cash in your American Express traveler's check to get money, and like ATM cards make things so easier. Like I was still writing for a lot of American magazines that were direct depositing my money in the States that I could withdraw in euros in Paris. There were FaceTimes, like smartphones were invented while I was over there. And so I was able to stay in touch with, my family and my friends, and they were able to fly over and visit. But just the beauty of the country though. I mean, I really, in 2004 is when I left, and that was the beginning of the Iraq War. Okay. And I remember being on the streets protesting it. And again, sort of idealistically feeling like if this country is going to go through with this war, I don't want my tax dollars to go to the bullets and bombs that are going to be used in this thing. Like, I don't have to stay here. I don't have a car note or a mortgage or even any children at that point. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm not going to be in this sort of position forever where I can just up and go anywhere, and the strength of the American passport is very powerful. We can't go to Cuba, but we can go to a lot of other places and visit and stay. And so there is a 3-month time limit that you're allowed to be in France in specific, but I was able to get my carte de séjour, which is basically their version of the green card, to be able to stay there for longer. And I published a few books over there, and I surfed from book deal to book deal and did what I had to do to feed my family. I fell in love. It was beautiful. And it was Barack Obama that brought me back, because I didn't want us to have a Black president while I wasn't there in the country to experience. I was like, no way. I don't know that he'll get another term, and I don't want us to, for the leader of the free world, quote unquote, to be a Black man without me being in America to feel what that's like, know. And so I came back, and I wanted my sons to be more Americanized as well at the time. They're bilingual and they have dual citizenship. Oh, wow. And but we decided to come here and do America for a while, and we're still here. It's been 10 years, but we would go back. I'd go back. I love Paris. We go back every summer.
You live in Harlem or Brooklyn. Where are you?
No, I'm in Harlem.
In Harlem. I mean, my goodness, the cultural mecca, the history, the richness of there. Do you enjoy being in Harlem?
Oh yeah, for sure. My parents were originally from Harlem.
Oh, they were from Harlem. Okay.
Yeah, my parents were high school sweethearts and childhood sweethearts, and so Harlem is very familiar to me. My grandfather. I've written about this in my first book, which is sort of a memoir of growing up in the Bronx in the 70s and 80s. But he used to run numbers. He was a numbers banker. In fact, he had people running numbers for him. Yeah. He kind of paid my tuition like that, know, and so he was up on Amsterdam Avenue. And so that area was very familiar to me, and that lifestyle, was very familiar to me. Yeah. And that's not written about enough, I think.
Forrest Whitaker, Bumpy Johnson.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
In that era. Wow, that's fascinating.
That era. Yeah. I wish my grandpa was still here to discuss
to tell you some of
these
stories.
Things with him, some of those stories. Yeah.
That would be another book or
for sure.
Book. Yeah.
For sure. So I've written a short story starring a numbers runner, just because to get all of those sort of memories out, into a creative space. I published a story called Numbers Up, which was anthologized in a book called Bronx Noir.
Okay.
And that's available. I've been doing short stories and fiction for a while now as well. It's like Baldwin is such a huge influence. I know he must have been on you as well. But the fact that he wrote plays and essays and short stories and novels, he was just this intellectual, creative juggernaut, man. I'll always be in his shadow.
Profound influence on me and you and so many others. So tell me about this this message from Ava DuVernay. Do you know Ava? Were you shocked to receive this message from her? Tell us about that.
Sure. No, I don't know Ava. Actually, we hadn't met. Before she launched her filmmaking career, she was a publicist in sort of my world, like as a music journalist. Before music comes out to the masses, the journalists get it first to be able to review it and stuff like that. Right. And even for Broadway plays and for movies, we get the advance notice, right? So she was a publicist, and she may have contacted me over the years when that was her career. I honestly don't remember. Certainly we had never met. But I guess on social media, we were connected. Right. And this was probably the last year I was living in Paris. I had begun filming pre-production, let's say, for the documentary I want to do about French hip hop. Okay. And I put the word out there. Just, I interviewed somebody, and so I mentioned it. And she slid in my DMs and encouraged me, go for it. I guess because she was fresh in Hollywood as well. She hadn't released Selma or the things that would make her a major force yet, but she was certainly doing her thing. And so she was encouraging me to do my thing. She had just come out of having a regular job to being to becoming
now really pursuing
that she is
and doing her thing. Well, I tell you, Miles, I'm so personally proud of you.
Thank you.
And
Thank
the
you.
work that you're doing. And you know, I know the book is going to do well. I know the films that you're going to make are going to do well, and I'm so glad to spend some time with you and to have
Likewise.
you on. I'm excited to get some copies of the books, and we'll let our students know when
Okay.
the book will be in the library. Promise that you will, excuse me, Sing About Me by Miles Marshall Lewis. Remember that name. You're going to see it again. You're going to hear it again. And we can say that he came by Voorhees' way. We want to close with just this little brief vignette about the book. Good seeing you. Blessings
Yes,
to you,
always.
family. And we'll
Thank
talk.
you. Likewise. All right. This was a great time. Thank you again, Scott.